Welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars, the place that takes you straight into the pulse of the most unexpected behind-the-scenes moments in Turkish entertainment. Before we jump into this breathtaking account, remember to subscribe, tap like, and, if you want to support our community, hit the join button for access to exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. Afra has dominated conversations these past few days, and not just because of recent personal reflections that had already set social media buzzing. What really sent the industry into a spin was an incident on the set of a brand new romantic series filming in Istanbul, the kind of moment that makes even seasoned professionals stop and rewatch. It all centered on a kiss with her co-star, Mert, a kiss planned in the script, yes, but performed with such unfiltered truth that many who saw it swore it had to be spontaneous. The scene was staged inside a carefully reconstructed cafe in the Galata district, all warm wood, fogged windows, and the faint hush of a city winding down. Lights softened the edges of the room, the clink of porcelain was timed to the beat of the actors' breaths, and the camera slid forward as if drawn by gravity. There was a moment, two faces, one careful step closer, silence settling like velvet, and then the kiss. It wasn't dramatic in the way of raised voices or sweeping gestures, it was precise, slow, frighteningly intimate. When the director finally called cut, the set didn't erupt like it usually does. Instead, the entire crew sat in a suspended quiet for several seconds, as though no one wanted to be the first to break the spell. "It was in the pages," a lighting technician confided later, still sounding a little stunned. "But they played it so honestly that the gear around us disappeared. For a beat, it felt like we were intruding on something we shouldn't see." What heightened the moment even further was the path Afra had taken to reach it. She has been working with an internationally respected creative coach, a presence on every take, standing just beyond the glow of the monitors. Together they move through rituals that have become second nature, measured breathing to ground the body, guided emotional improvisations that loosen the edges of memory, and a detailed character diary that tracks private moments nowhere written in the script. It's a method that demands courage and stamina, and it has allowed Afra to inhabit this role with a ferocity that mirrors pieces of her own experience, though she rarely draws a line between the two in public. On set, craft eclipsed feeling. Even as whispers of a real-life spark began to drift through online corners, the coach remained composed and vigilant. After the director's cut, as the room held its breath, he applauded her commitment with a small nod, then edged close enough to be heard only by her. "Breathe. Stay here. Keep the thread." It was an understated but eloquent gesture, absolute support without confusing personal emotion with artistic focus, a reminder that the work, above all, was the point. But the set is never just the set anymore. A grainy clip, captured from a control room monitor and hurriedly forwarded to a friend of a friend, found its way to the wider world within hours. Plates mirrored the glow of screens as people pressed play over late-night dinners, and timelines filled with opinions. Their names climbed the trending columns, and phrases about a kiss on set and undeniable chemistry blazed across feeds. Some viewers let themselves believe the feeling they saw was proof of something blooming off camera. Others, just as passionately, insisted that what everyone had witnessed was simply the highest order of performance, the kind of work that dissolves the barrier between character and actor without ever truly crossing it. One message among thousands captured the split with clarity: "It looks impossibly real," the fan wrote. "But that's what the very best actors do, make us forget we're watching a story." Afra has not addressed the scene publicly. Those close to her quietly note that she is bearing down on the work with fierce concentration and that her private world remains firmly, intentionally protected. She has made a career of letting the roles speak while her actual life stays behind the door, and this time is no different. Mert has kept things equally restrained. He didn't add to the firestorm, didn't toss in a winking comment. Instead, he dropped a single still from the set onto his feed, a candid angle of hands resting on a table, the glow of the cafe's hanging lamps soft against the glass, and captioned it with a line as simple as it was loaded: "Stories come to life." Within the borders of the industry, critics and journalists took a more measured tone. Many observed that the clip should be remembered less as fodder for gossip and more as an example of discipline and technique, proof that the old alchemy of art and truth can still redesign a person's heartbeat when it's executed with precision. They warned against flattening a complex craft into clickbait and suggested that the scene might already belong to the year's small collection of images that define why people fall in love with television at all. To understand why the moment landed so hard, you have to picture the hours preceding it. Afra arrived on set early, hair tucked under a scarf against the dawn cool, coffee in hand, script pages folded and refold. She and Mert passed in the courtyard with an easy greeting that comes from months of collaboration. There's a rhythm between them now, an understanding of when to reach and when to hold. They ran lines, then ran them again without words, letting the movement of breath carry the scene as the camera team mapped the path that would make everything feel like a secret discovered rather than a tableau arranged. The director watched them without comment for a long time, then set the pace by tapping a finger against the back of a chair, slower, slower still. By the time they stepped into the cafe set, everyone knew there would be only a handful of takes. The goal was to catch the first strike of lightning, not chase a storm around the city. On the first run, Afra's hand hesitated. On the second, Mert shifted his stance in a way that made the distance between them look shorter. By the third, they both exhaled at the exact same second. A grip whispered that the air in the room changed, as if the temperature dipped. The camera operator, eyes glued to the monitor, followed without an inch of shake. It was the third take that ended up in the leaked clip, and even the raw angle of a control feed couldn't mute the impact. The chatter that followed has predictably blurred professional and personal lines, as chatter always does when two actors carry a story like a shared pulse. For fans who have watched Afra and Mert since their first shared projects, it feels like a culmination of something they sensed long ago, a language of looks, a private shorthand. For others, it's an opportunity to argue about method, about how much of an actor's own emotion belongs in the frame, and whether the audience's job is to simply believe or to understand the machinery behind what they're seeing. Meanwhile, the coach's presence has become part of the mythology. Those who observed from the edges say he kept a steady watch without inserting himself, stepping in only when focus wavered. In one corner, he held the character diary Afra has kept since the first day of rehearsal, pages brimming with half-remembered songs and sketchy maps of rooms that only exist inside the character's head. Before the kiss, he had guided her through a breathing cycle that slows the heart to the exact pace needed to match the shot. Afterward, he tucked the diary away as if placing a delicate instrument back in its case. There was no celebration in the immediate aftermath, just the quiet, efficient resetting that comes from a crew that knows it captured something alive. Wardrobe cruised in with a lint roller, makeup dabbed away the sheen on a cheekbone, the assistant director murmured something about lunch. Mert stood to the side, hands in his pockets, gaze lowered, letting the noise settle. Afra stepped into a patch of light and closed her eyes for a second, as if writing something down inside herself. And then the outside world arrived. The clip, in its shaky glory, ran through group chats and public forums. Think pieces popped up within an afternoon, weighing the power of restraint against the adrenaline of spectacle. Fans began to compile side-by-side comparisons of other moments when Afra and Mert let the line between character and instinct flicker, pointing to gestures only visible upon slow motion. People debated whether real connection can be manufactured at all, or whether the spark must exist to be amplified. Yet through all of it, the best voices, the ones who have sat in editing suites in cold studios, who know how many times a moment has to be rebuilt to appear effortless, kept insisting on a simple truth. Sometimes a scene works because two actors commit to the exact same thing at the exact same time. Sometimes it works because craft and courage line up, because the director trusts the silence, because the crew moves like a single organism, because a coach marks a heartbeat and a performer follows it. And sometimes, as this seemed to be, it works because the people in front of the camera hold the audience with care, asking them to lean in and listen for something barely audible. If you're wondering about statements, there aren't any. Not yet. Afra has chosen the discipline of quiet, the way she often does when the conversation threatens to run away from the work. Friends say she has a checklist for nights like these: hydrate, sleep, show up early, keep reading, keep breathing, and that she is resolute about leaving her personal world where it belongs. Mert, ever the listener in a conversation, seems to have adopted the same approach. He lets the images speak, then steps back, trusting that what they built in the cafe will carry more weight than any caption longer than a line. Back at the studio, the memory of the day lingers. Crew members talk about how hard it is to recreate a feeling once the first version has escaped into the world. The sound team jokes that the hush after the cut should win an award of its own. Someone notes that the coffee they poured for background texture went cold untouched. The detail readers among them point out the way the light from the window pooled on the floor like a tide and wonder if that wasn't what made the room feel so fragile, as if the actors were standing on water. For many inside the business, the scene has already crossed from moment to marker. It's no longer just an episode beat, it's a case study in how intimacy on screen can be both meticulous and alive. That a leaked, unpolished angle could provoke this kind of reaction only underscores how rare it is to catch a performance at the precise intersection of intent and instinct. The cafe may have been a set, the kiss a line on a schedule, but the effect was something no call sheet can guarantee. So we turn the question back to you. When you watched, did you accept it as a crafted moment, a perfect illusion? Or did you feel a pulse of something that went beyond the frame? Tell us how it landed, what you saw in the tilt of a chin or the fraction of a breath, and which stars you'd like us to dive into next. From all of us here at Whispers of Turkish Stars, thank you for being with us. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a like, and, if you want to take an extra step in supporting our work, click the join button. We'll be back very soon with more revelations from the hidden corners of Turkish entertainment and the stories that live just off camera, waiting to be told.